No one,
Recording in progress.
I see no one in Zoom land. They don't know what fun they're gonna miss. All right, so we'll call this meeting to order. We have a pretty basic agenda here. I don't think of any general business unless other people do. And our first agenda item is discussing areas of LUZO that will need amending based on state legislative changes.
I have to do the next one first, just because it's faster.
And we'll discuss potential amendments to section 611.
It's advertised in the October 2nd,
Thank you.
American and Indian Islander thing.
For discussion of potential amendments to LUZO section 611, the shoreline zoning appeals. I've had preliminary conversations with the town attorney on those amendments that are necessary to make, but Kim, myself, and Noel have a call with town attorney next week to go into a little bit more detail. I know there's changes to section 6B11 came out of a recent project. I don't know if Kim or Gail, if you want to have more details on what that project was, kind of why it's brought up 6B11 again. I know historically there's been a lot of.
That's what
Oh, yeah.
been amended, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 times.
Mhm.
We had a application that came before the planning board back in September for a property that was in Bar Harbor, but the applicants or the property owners had used a private road that is completely in the town of Mount Desert. And so, the question was, came up whether the town was okay to issue permits for this development, and that's from the code officer in Bar Harbor. And so I did some research and said, well, no, I said, they've got to amend the road, because they're accessing it through the town of Mount Desert, and the Mount Desert Fire Department would be the ones responding quicker than Bar Harbor. So it was really kind of a complicated situation because it's never been one where a land is completely within the town or another town, but using a roadway in another town. So we're going back to the drawing board on this because it's just going to raise issues again down the road, how it's written. So,
I mean, some of the issues were that it is 6B11-2. I kind of didn't understand why Andy was taking the position he was about how that ordinance was to be interpreted, because you've got 2.1, which says all lots must maintain safe access, so forth, and that is clear enough. But then you've got a 2 and a 3, and the 2 says for new driveways, standards have to be met, and then for lot 3. For number 3, it says for lots created before May 15, 2015, a pre-existing driveway, or lots created before May 2015, a pre-existing private road need not meet the requirements of section 514 of which is the road ordinance. And I said, the way I read that, you've got a general provision in 1, and then seems to me you have limiting provisions, especially in 3. That make those lots that were established before 2015 not have to comply with the road ordinance. And he wasn't interpreting it that way. And I kind of don't, it's a question of how you interpret ordinances and statutes. And I thought that if you had a more limiting description, that the more limiting description would tend to apply. So in general, you got to maintain standards. This is a very old road, by the way, driveway. It's been around for a long time and well-established houses on it, some of which are like the Richardson farm has been there a very long time. And other new houses have been built on that road, and houses have been built in recent memory
But are they considered town of Mount Desert houses?
Yeah, they're Mount
So
Desert.
just this
Yeah.
one house.
This one house just went beyond. And then it turns out it actually was only the very last, it was confusing also because were we talking about the whole road or were we just talking about that stretch beyond the Kelly property? It was just like, wait a minute,
it had a lot of moving parts, but also the road was being extended.
Yeah.
up into the lot, because it was not, it looked like an old tote road, so it wasn't, it was
Yes.
only 10 feet wide.
Yes.
So it didn't meet, what the current requirement is. So section 2 that she's referencing doesn't talk specifically about driveways, it talks also about roadways. And if they're extending it or it's new, then they have to bring it up to the standards under the ordinance, subdivision ordinance. That's what triggered this. And that's why, and then they had to do pull-offs and they had to, because with a dead end road, you have to have a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead if Mike's okay with that. And then have some pull-offs, but they had to extend it, and that's why it came, even though their law predated the enactment of this access provision. But it went back and forth, and it was confusing.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a very unusual.
The thing is, we had a
situation.
lot of people from the road here,
Right.
and they were all trying to help make it work for this couple.
They didn't wanna have it widened.
They didn't want to have it widened, but they didn't, they wanted to help this couple be able to build.
Yep.
And
They did, but it was just,
at the end of it, there were lots of, we figured it out, sort of. I mean, I hope the fire department was happy enough with it.
so that's why we have to, thanks for bringing that up, but.
But they're all hugging and.
Oh my gosh, kumbaya, everything's good in the end.
We're gonna look at it again.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You understand kind of where Andy's coming from, just where, so 6B11 to 3, it mentions like pre-existing driveways. I guess the question really is like, if you extend the driveway, is it still the pre-existing driveway that was grandfathered, or if you just didn't touch it, that's like a pre-existing driveway? But if you change it or make it bigger or anything, now it's like.
Well, there was a pre-existing road there, it just wasn't.
But also Mike Bender was requiring it to be widened, trees to be cleared because they had grown in.
Right.
He was also looking for pull-offs.
Yeah,
But then it came into an issue where the specific property that this road goes over would now create, if they widen the roadway, it would take more land under the roadway, which is part of the lot area, and make that lot non-conforming.
yeah,
So
the
there was
neighboring,
a lot of stuff.
yeah. It was like, there was so many.
Good God.
I walked into the meeting, I'm like, oh, this should be fairly straightforward. And I said, Andy's here. It's like,
no.
It's like, oh, why is he here?
Primarily about it. Again, I don't have like a solution just yet of what makes sense, but in some way there has to be like, again, like maybe a waiver provision for the board to just say like, as long as you're meeting certain design standards, like, and again, there's a pre-existing road, you don't have to go through that full process of review. But again, like at the end of the day, it's for fire safety and life safety. So if the fire department's not okay with
Right.
what currently exists, there may have to be some amendments, but it's not like you don't have to meet such stringent standards as 514.
I think they did at the end. I mean, they were, there's gonna be a turnaround and there's a hammerhead and they're gonna take, there was an additional piece of land of the part of the lot that they were gonna use, for this,
Are our fire standards for roadways the same as Bar Harbor's? Because had this property perhaps come in from a different angle, it might have been a Bar Harbor road that was being discussed. So are the fire departments on the same page?
I believe they spoke with each other, yeah.
yeah.
And I know about.
The other thing is, one thing I didn't ask that I don't understand is, so our fire department has a response time that's a few minutes quicker than Town Hill. Right, so they come from, would they come from Town Hill?
It would have been Stonesville.
No, we'd come from Stonesville, but
Oh,
Bar Harbor.
yeah, they would have been no, they said Bar Harbor.
Because
said-
probably someone's gotta get to Town Hill from Bar Harbor, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so.
so if Mount Desert is in these situations, I don't know, maybe this is my question. If Mount Desert shows up first and starts setting up, do they then, if it's a Bar Harbor lot that's on fire, do they then give way and Bar Harbor has to deal with? I don't know.
To mutually,
Yeah, they work
I
together.
think that like any town comes out for a fire, that's like on the island.
Right. Anyway, it was an interesting conversation, as in, may you be cursed to live in interesting times. So, I appreciate anything that can be done to clarify it for, I don't know how many other
Well, we
possible.
thought this would be easier when we created this by taking away road frontage requirements.
Right,
Because I was coming up against lots that were created that did not have proper road frontage. So I just kept running into it, so we talked about this, and this was the solution, but it was different the first time, and then of course it had to be It was not good enough, that had to be tweaked again, because people that had pre-existing lots that were vacant on a substandard private road, we kind of were penalizing them for not having their property developed, so it wasn't fair to make them upgrade the roadway just so they could develop their lot, because it's existing, it wasn't a new lot, but.
Cause we've had
And now we
several
go
of
back and
those.
said, well, if it predated the ordinance enactment or that amendment, and then you didn't have to, but if you extend it, then you have, I mean, it was just.
Yeah. No, and it's tough because also like a lot of fire access stuff isn't from the town, it's from the state with an FPA and IFC, so. It's not like you can really change those standards at all, so Mike has to like, as the AHJ enforce those standards as well, looking at permits.
That's why he's looked at many roadways when that came into effect. Ones that came to my head, he and I drove them, and I wrote letters to everybody on the roadway saying, look, fire department, the scathing long letter, and.
I mean, we had one in town in our Hall Quarry that we did. That
Behind my house, right? Yeah.
that was,
Mhm.
I mean, I was kind of surprised that tiny space that we parked our cars in to do and then tried to get out to do the site visit. That Mike had decided, well, yeah, I can get trucks in and out of there. And in that situation, you'd probably have to keep ferrying a bunch of water up in there too. Cause that was a big question. Like if you have to haul water in, it's like vehicles have to pass each other and it's every, I don't know how many, 30 seconds or something. I mean, it's
Like you say, you have to look at certain criteria, to determine whether it can be widened, whether it works, topography, trees. 'Cause somebody's well was right next to the roadway, so you couldn't, that-
yes, yes.
That well is there, yeah, it is.
So anyway,
Yeah, that's being looked at again.
okay, there's that.
There's that. The second piece, I mean, I think this one's. But Andy had mentioned that there is a provision for appeals in the shoreline zoning. Part of the ordinance, and then there's also a separate section for appeals. In the LUZO separately from that, and so just bringing those two to be the same process, or line them up better. So that'll just be some language changes to the
Okay.
appeals. But that one, yeah, is simpler than the 6.
I'm not so sure that one's gonna be simpler, but
Well, it should be.
we tried it once and
Oh.
it got shot down. So, well, not shot down at town meeting, it got shot down before it went.
Why?
Because what Andy wants this to ideally do is to have language in it that doesn't allow people to appeal my decisions.
Huh.
And planning board's decisions.
Oh, it goes straight.
It's like-
Both of them go straight to court.
Yeah, it's under that Reposa
Mhm.
case law, which I printed here.
Mhm.
Reposa versus the York.
Right.
So it would bypass.
The
No,
Board
they
of
wouldn't be able
Appeals.
to appeal my decision or the planning board,
Right,
go
well,
right to court.
The Board of Appeals would only be a variance.
That's what they do anyways, right? Variance, right? Because their decision don't matter once it goes to court.
Or,
It's kind of like a,
well, it matters a little bit.
well, I mean, it does, well, no, not necessarily, because their decision is always not, from what I can tell, reading cases, is not really considered.
Well, yeah, it depends on what, most of the time, if they're doing a appellate review, it doesn't matter. If they're doing a de novo review, the court may consider their opinion. but-
Yeah. Like.
Do we actually have a live planning board of appeals?
Process. But Harvard goes, they
Well-
go right to court.
Well, yeah, and a lot of places are starting to go right to court because it turns out. The people that challenge these sorts of things are just gonna end up going as far as they can anyway, where like the point of the Board of Appeals appealing all these other decisions was. To save people time and money where you didn't have to go to court right away.
mhm.
But again, mostly people who wouldn't have the money to go to court aren't really the ones appealing these sorts of things. It's people who do have the money to pay a lawyer and take it all the way anyway. And so you are just adding extra time, and money to the process when you could just go straight to court. And then just save time and taxpayer dollars paying the town's attorney, so. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it, but I think, again, like, it's just easier to go to court too sometimes when. Boards of appeals meet so infrequently, and members churn and don't get experience actually reviewing things, that
Do we even have an active board of appeals at this point?
Yeah.
We do?
One of the members just passed away though, sadly.
Mhm.
I didn't know she was sick. Well, I mean, I knew she was, but
But yeah, so we'll be discussing that, and I guess maybe it'll be more complicated, but I'll find out next week when we work on. To discuss that piece of it, but those are the two other items, so that was
Okay,
quicker than. I didn't know if I was gonna have actual updates tonight or not, but Andy couldn't meet until
Sweet.
later.
Yep.
So, we can move on to the other item, the state legislative changes, so major legislative change. I believe last meeting I went over just like the chart I made with all the passage, like the laws that got passed. But LD 1829 is really the biggest one. And so there are a lot of policy choices that I wanted to discuss tonight, which is why I didn't really like put too much out for you guys. Really just talking and getting a sense of what would work for the town, what direction I should be heading in when we're drafting these things. And so I did bring a couple of maps just because I don't know if they'd be useful, but we can put them out on the table there. Because some of the bigger changes revolve around density and minimum lot sizes, different parts of the town. So it was kind of complicated for me to figure out where in the town certain aspects of 1829 apply and then others don't. So this is just the zoning map, and then I kind of did my best without being able to make my own maps in GIS to label out. So the growth areas are where you kind of expect, because the growth areas are a big part of LD 1829. So like this area outside of the shoreland zone is all growth area.
Right in town.
Right in town, yep. And then this pocket, Otter Creek, is all growth area. This part of Seal Harbor is growth area, but like this piece is not. That's why the little red's there. None of this is the growth area, so that's why the red's there. The green up here is all pieces that are growth area, so this R1. So Soamesville is, you know, down that stretch is all growth area. But then as you get further down this way, this is all growth area. And this little RW2 is where it ends. This is not growth area. It's resource.
Soamesville just on the main street is growth area?
Yep, it's listed as a growth area from the last comp plan, 2009 one.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
not, but we'll get into that. And then none of this was growth area. 'Cause I was trying to find like R2, what typically I thought would be a growth area zone, but there were areas where it was outside of the growth area. Same with up here, that's not a growth area. But where the green is, that's all growth area along there. And then this part right here is growth area. But none of this.
It is?
Yeah, that lot, and this is the area in particular is growth area.
That's where the
Like
camp
Naples.
crossing the campground, not desert campground. It's weird because like the lot size is 3 acres here and it's over there the same.
Right. So the growth areas don't make, I mean, some of them make sense, obviously,
Yeah.
like this one does,
Yeah.
that one does, or that one does.
So like neighborhoods.
Right, they're village centers.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yep.
but like nothing over in pretty
What
marsh.
about Mount Quarry?
I was gonna say how
No,
quiet.
that is actually outside of the growth area.
Hmm.
But then that
Well, they
is
don't have
like,
any
what's that
water
Parker
either.
Farm area there, right, Joe? Is that,
Yeah, not
Yeah.
Parker Five down
There.
here.
so that's in between.
Down further, sure.
Okay, huh.
So the second function or part of the L 1829 is where utilities are. And so this map shows the zoning with the utilities. It has to be both water and sewer. So like Holmesville only has sewer, so it's not not much of like LD 1829 affects Holmesville, but like down here, the minimum lot areas would be like the 5,000 square foot differences, and same with that part of Seal Harbor in particular, where it's a growth area and there's both water and sewer. And so, but again, like Otter Creek only has sewer, doesn't have water. And so, yeah, like in general, so that's what informed the chart that you guys have. I have to make a couple of handwritten changes after I printed it, because I realized I made a mistake, but I can just talk over this small one. So when you're looking at the types of zones where development is happening, I'll probably go back to this. So there were a lot of zones where, like, in my mind, I was really hoping that like zones that were meant for development would be all growth area, and then ones that weren't would be all outside of it and be nice and neat. But it didn't really work out that way, where there are a lot of zones that are both in and outside of the growth area. So that's why the chart is broken into the 4 types of minimum lot sizes that you'll need for LD 1829, which is if it's in the growth area and has public water and sewer. If it's in the growth area but doesn't have public water and sewer. It's outside of the growth area but has public water and sewer. Or and then just generally if it's outside of a growth area and also does not have public water and sewer. So like VR1 is a good example, actually. Like a very like development forward zone. But there will be changes. So the changes that are caused by LD 1829 are in red on your sheet. So I should have printed out what the ordinance was anyway, just for reference, so you can see what the table of uses looks like, or take the dimensional requirements look like now, but just read them off. So right now, just generally in the VR1 zone, if a lot is connected to public sewer, it doesn't mention water at all in the ordinance currently, you could have a 10,000 square foot lot. And then if it's connected without public sewer, it's a 1 acre lot. I'm not going to get into cluster or workforce really at this point. But now it would have to be if it's with public water and sewer, it's 5,000 square feet. And then if it's in GA, it's in the growth area without public water and sewer, you can only still cap it at 20,000 square feet, which is the state minimum for a septic. And then, so those are two changes that are going to come to the VR1 zone. Now again, like currently it's organized by with public sewer. That's a larger size slot, a 10,000 square foot. I mean, I didn't really go through and count or see if there were lots that were connected to water but not sewer or the other way around.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In your chart, in growth area without public water and sewer, should that say without public water and or sewer?
No, the law only affects lots that are connected to both.
Okay,
So if you have sewer and you're in a growth area, LD 1829, you wouldn't have to follow like that provision.
okay,
And then
so it's either all or nothing. In terms of,
kind of, I mean, so like if you're outside of a growth area, but a public water and sewer, you do have other rules that apply to you. But if you just have, it's for utilities, it's all or nothing. You have to have both water and sewer.
okay, thank you.
Get the full
To
benefit.
be affected by the law, yeah. And then, so outside of, so on your charts, this is one of the mistakes I made. So outside of the growth area without public water and sewer, I wrote NA, because I originally thought there just weren't any lots that were outside of the growth area without public water and sewer, but then there is that stretch up here in Simsville area, that's VR1. So you could change that to 20,000 square feet, right? And that's what I think I just based it on. It was 1 acre now for VR1 without sewer, so you could keep it at 1 acre, but the minimum you would potentially make, you could make it is 20,000 square feet.
Would you want to be consistent?
I mean, it's a policy decision again, like if it's,
I mean, if we're trying to encourage,
or sorry, the reason that these would have to be 20,000 square feet is because they're in the growth area. But if it VR1, maybe I wasn't wrong, outside of the growth area. Wait, where was the one? I thought I saw a VR1 that was outside of the growth area. And that's why I changed it on my sheet. But maybe I misread it. Maybe I was right when you're with the copy you guys have, because I can't think of where the VR1 would have been that was outside of the growth area. It might have been around here because no, because everything on this side,
VR3.
right? But everything that's not in the growth area actually, because they actually took everything on the shoreland zone outside of the growth area, and this was all in the shoreland zone area that they took out. But I think everything on the side of the road was growth area, so it wasn't there. I'll think about it again. I'll have to
Nice
double
to have
check
some
that one.
workforce housing.
But so your chart might be right, where there are no VR1s outside of the growth area and don't have public water and sewer. And then same for VR2. I thought I made
Is it here?
Very easy.
Creek?
No, that's all growth area.
But like you said, it only has sewer, but not water.
Right, but because it's in the growth area, that one has to become 20,000 square foot minimum lot sizes.
Right.
Well, in theory, you can wait to pass this till after the new comp plan is done, and then your growth areas might.
Yeah.
But this is all based on what they currently are.
You can't require more than 20,000.
No, the minimum lot size the town can require is 20,000.
Okay.
Someone could, in theory, just choose to make a lot that's bigger than that, but this town can't require that.
Okay, no, that's fine.
And then, yeah, VR2 was a very similar thing. Again, I think I might have just misread that somewhere, that VR2, although I believe that one more than the other one, that there is a VR2 just floating somewhere.
No way.
Yeah, that's like just kind of around, yeah, that's not in the growth area technically. But I don't remember exactly where it was. Didn't have the flags.
Is it around the Asticoo? Is that a growth area? Here?
Just on this side of the road, yes,
Yeah.
but not on the side that the Asituku actually is. That's outside of the growth area.
Yeah, but across the street is.
At least part of it is.
Yeah. I
Um,
was trying to think what you might be thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be this little piece. Like, I don't know if the Seal Harbor one went all the way up actually, but I think it did because that RW3 is part of the growth area. So that's wrong actually. I should put more flags down. But anyway, I think I just made a mistake when I was looking over this quickly after I printed it, where yours is right and then drawn it. So really the only ones that would affect VR2 are again the 5,000 square feet, where with public water and sewer right now, if you're connected to sewer, it's 20,000 square feet. And then if you are in the growth area but don't have public water and sewer, you'd have to allow, which would be like the Soamesville VR2 up here. I've just gotten this confused where I was like, oh, that's not in the growth, but it is the growth area. But the VR2 is 20,000 square feet now. In like Soamesville, where without public sewer, it's an acre currently. And so that's going to change, and like somewhat significantly. I mean, with public water and sewer, you're not allowing lots that are a quarter the size of what they're required to be now, and then you're essentially cutting them in half, for lots that are outside or without public and sewer, public water and sewer. And then R1 and R2 were the ones that were a little bit more complicated because they are spread out again, like so many spots outside, but also within the growth area. So those are full charts where the changes are in red still. So again, like there were some places that had water. See, I have that mark up here is where this was. This is like, this area is technically not the growth area, but water and sewer does technically run up to some of these lots. So in theory, part of the R2 does have public water and sewer running to it. It's not much. It's like, I think only a couple of these lots. Cause I don't think it goes all the way to the end I have the map.
I think it's up to Golf Club Road and Sergeant.
It looks like it stops like after the second or third lot right here. So like somewhere right around here.
Yeah.
But again, like the R2 zone technically then has some parts of it that would have to be allowed to. They're in the growth area and have public water and sewer, so they could split these lots in theory to 5,000 square feet. I don't know how big they are now, but. And then again, up here for R2 and R1, maybe. No, R1 was down here where they're in the growth area, but don't have both public water and sewer. Those have to be changed to 20,000 square feet, where again, one of them, R1 now is an acre, and then R2 now is 2 acres. So essentially, what I've been seeing with a lot of these is that your zoning is going to change a lot. Like I would condense how many zones there are. More like you don't really need an R1 and R2 anymore. Where you might just have, again, unless you do want to allow if it's off of public water and sewer and outside of the growth area. So you may want to make growth area zones and then like outside of growth area zones where the R2 still requires 2 acres or 1 acre lots or 2 acre lots. Yeah, it requires 2 acre lots if you don't have public water and sewer and are outside of the growth area. But then where it's kind of out of your hands because of the state law, just following with that is having a separate zone for those areas of the town because they're affected. But again, you may want to keep like that one, but like over here, that R2 it may not make sense to lower that to 20,000 square feet. 20,000 square foot lots. You may want to keep it 2 acre lots over in that part of town. So it's going to necessitate some bigger changes probably after the comp plan's done. But the zoning is probably going to look a lot different than it does currently. And And so the shoreline zone, this is where I made more of a mistake, where you could make a policy choice, I guess, to make some of these apply, but shoreline zoning is protected from LD 1829. It still trumps its terms of law, so all that zoning will actually stay the same. I just inappropriately filled it out. I wasn't thinking. Because again, luckily, well, I don't know if it's really luckily, but they did leave everything on the shoreline zoning out of the growth area when they redid the map, except for, I think that's why I filled it out, because this is technically growth area, even though it's shoreline zoning, but it's because there was a wetland there and they just cut out the wetland area.
So what are you saying about this second page?
Saying this page is almost entirely wrong. You should
Okay,
just- Yeah,
that's all right.
go across like that. It doesn't get affected by LD 1829.
You foresee the shoreline ever, or DEP ever relaxing the rules that will comply with this? Similar to like
I don't.
allowing another ADU on a lot without having to meet the dimensional requirements? No?
Yeah, I don't. Again, like it's pretty, I think it's probably a good thing. Maine's got enough land. I mean, not Rhode Island doesn't, but Maine in general has enough land that I wouldn't want the state to like kind of force that in the shoreline when there's should be plenty of other places to build an ADU. Where again, like I think so much of Maine is reliant on protecting its natural resources.
Yeah.
And the shoreline zone is not even that protective, but
No.
I think it's a good minimum to have. And
I mean, it's just weird. You can have a guest house, but you just can't have cooking facilities, but
yeah,
it looks the same as a house.
but it's also an impact if you don't have a septic in it or something like that.
Well, you have to have a septic
I don't know,
Or
like a
sewer.
bunkhouse, you have to.
or a guest house.
I thought if you had a bunkhouse, you could just in theory let someone use the primary dwelling unit. Use
Well, in the bunkhouse, you're not supposed to have any plumbing
right. So like
under the subsurface wastewater rules.
I'm saying, like they wouldn't put in a septic at all, and if they have to use the bathroom, they just go into the primary house. To use
Yeah, but a guest house, you can, it's everything with the exception of just a cooking facility.
Well, change that definition.
Okay.
So then VR3 was a weird one. None of it is in the growth area, so none of that applied, but it is connected to water and sewer, and so that's really the only one that does apply to it. Because the entire lot it's a one lot essentially.
That's the Astico, right?
Yeah. And so their minimum lot size would change to the 5,000 square feet. Although some of it is in shoreline zone, not all of it is, so like.
It's just got the buffer, the overlay.
Buffer, so I mean, I think that if they ever split the lot, I don't think that's gonna happen, but if they ever did, they in theory could split it to 5,000 square feet. Lots, and then the density, I didn't get really into the density in this, but that would.
Well, I don't know how they can do that when they need 200 feet of shore frontage.
Great, problem solved, but we have to allow them to do it at the zoning table.
Just saying.
Yeah, in the zoning table, we have to tell them.
Yeah, enough problems.
Requirements, 5,000 square feet.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I don't know how much shore frontage they currently have. They have to maintain 200 feet for all the lots they split, yeah.
So it's, one of the things that seems to me is that on the comp plan and beyond, the town needs to grapple with why it wants growth and where it wants growth and what it thinks it's capable of doing to facilitate that growth, basically, which is the utility infrastructure.
Yeah.
So does the town want to just try to pack things into these small areas? Does the town, I mean, you look at there's a lot to Sumsville. It's not just right on a very crowded main street with a ridiculously congested road. But that's not considered any of the growth area. But if you had, and I use that as an example because there are other areas like that. The idea that you would continue to try to intensify very small areas of the town and leave large lots elsewhere, everywhere else, doesn't seem great to me. But the real question is what's the town up for? What's the town want to plan to do over the next 10, 15, 20 years in terms of its infrastructure to extend the ability? And then how and why? Do you want it to just be so that we have more seasonal homes, or we have more rentals, or we have a better year-round community, which I thought was the purpose of all of this stuff? It seems to me those are some of the questions that the town needs to grapple with, unless I'm missing something.
No, I mean, again, like I think that's pretty true, and like infrastructure, and it seems to be what the state's basing a lot of their policy on, is they don't wanna. You know, a lot of smaller towns aren't even affected by LE 1829 for the most part, because
They don't have any,
they either don't have a growth area because they were so small or stagnant for the past 10 years, they didn't put one in their comp plan. Or they were exempt from doing it, or like they don't have any public infrastructure, so now maybe they're just making them do 20,000 square foot lots, but they're not having development.
so when I see the state come up with a bunch of money for municipal infrastructure projects, well, they're serious about
I mean, that's true, because that's,
it.
well, there were some then pathways through Maine DOT to get some of that type of work done, but through the federal government, which.
Should probably happen here last, just like school funding and stuff like that, I think, because tax base.
I don't know if that's true, like, so Ellsworth is enrolled in one of the programs, or two programs through. One's through Maine DOT and one's through US DOT, because I had a great planner who enrolled them in those programs, but.
Once
Um,
upon a time.
But they, you know, one of them, they all hinge on, again, having federal money available at the end of the road, where the state isn't directly funding any of like the actual construction. They're helping with the planning and the engineering. But again, for like the multi-million-dollar actual execution, it was all relying on US DOT funds to come through. And now that's kind of up in the air on exactly how that'll go. That's kind of the sticking point for a lot of the projects.
Charitable description.
Yeah, thank you. And so, yeah, I mean, again, like Maine's not a rich state in particular, or it's got to focus on, I mean, it's a policy discussion again, but it's like southern Maine's where most of the tax base is. So if you're gonna have funds from taxes to pay for maintaining roads that get all the way up here.
And doing infrastructure in
It's tough.
granite
Mhm.
is a lot harder than doing it in Florida or something, you know, someplace it's all
Loamy soil or, yeah.
sand.
But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of challenges to making housing, but again, for policy wise and just like zoning and land use wise, the town does have to kind of decide as part of the comp plan process, which is the appropriate time to do it.
Are we serious about growth and why? And how, what would that actually look like over time?
Well, and like, yeah, like were the growth areas in the last plan, ones that made the most sense, or maybe not, where, especially with like the state using kind of growth area as a way to define new policy objectives. Where again, like Soamesville maybe isn't quite ready for the development that LE 1829 is pushing, because it only has sewer and Woodland water to connect up there at some point before really developing it. So do you create like a new name? Kind of like talk to Noel about this, where it's like, you have growth areas, which are now like a technical term being used in legislation, then you create a new zone where it's like, well, maybe it's not a zone that really should be primed for development within this comp plan, or maybe at the very tail end of the comp plan. So you call it something else, like potential development area.
Yeah, I mean, you have people already struggle with their water and things, so. It's also pretty close to the water or something, so you get salt.
Also, yeah, saltwater intrusion and stuff. Yeah, so it's like, how do you define that and like communicate that now that the state is choosing to make legislation based off of comp plan terms? Before, where it was a little bit, you could be a little bit more creative, I guess, where it wasn't such consequences calling something a growth area, like.
Right,
Yeah,
right. I mean, it looks, I wasn't around for that prior comp plan, others may remember, but it just seems like it was a pretty easy exercise. You look at the areas that are a little more concentrated, houses are a little closer together, and you say, oh, those are both areas.
well, yeah, I mean, again, that makes sense too, where you do want to, maybe there is potential for
It
it.
makes sense, but if that's like pretty much the,
Thank you.
the alpha and omega of your analysis, then it leaves a little bit.
Right, I mean, like, yeah, they didn't.
It doesn't allow you to actualize it.
There was no,
in
yeah,
most
like, it
places.
was just mixed use and infill, not really creating new development.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, which again, those are good types of development, but. Again, like if you think Hall's Quarry had the potential to get split up more,
They're pretty rocky too in terms of water.
yeah, they're high up also.
It would change their
Yeah,
lot
ledge
lot
on.
size from
every-
2 to 1.
Like, I don't even know how many houses have a basement in
Right.
Hall Quarry. Yeah, I wonder how.
Or one that
We
doesn't have
don't.
sump pumps,
Well, yeah, yeah.
courseways, or waterways through the basement.
But yeah, so I mean, those are, yeah, discussions that
Okay.
happen through the comp plan and then. Through town vote, but
What's the anticipated time of finalizing the comp plan?
oh, I don't know,
I'm not this time.
Huh?
not this town meeting.
No, but
Maybe the next one.
27?
Yeah.
Would line up pretty well then for finishing
Yeah.
up these by the time you have to finish them
Oh,
up.
it's gonna change, I'm
It'll be
sure,
the
between
same.
now and then anyways.
Well, yeah, January, they are gonna release a emissions amendments bill for this 1829. I don't know if the stuff we're talking about tonight will change at all. But there will be certain parts of it that change. And I
It's
think,
in committee now, are they chatting about that or?
I mean, I don't know if they're really in committee yet, but January is when it's supposed to be done.
Okay.
So we'll know by the start of the new year. And November is when they really get into working on it. And then, yeah, I think, I know like there was originally in 1829 a provision that, you know, speaking of appeals, like if a housing project doesn't like a decision of a planning board, they can just directly appeal to this new state body that they were going to create through the judiciary, without having to go through Board of Appeals or to court. So again, it would give that cheaper option and quicker, in theory, option to appeal a housing project specifically. But they took it out because so many towns or people, representatives didn't think that it was good to take away the power from the town. But again, they're ultimately going to appeal it.
Because that looks like they're just looking for ways to overrule.
Well, pretty
I
much.
know.
Well, yeah, that's exactly how people look at it. I mean,
I mean, there's
that really is the reality.
School systems, when somebody says, I want my child to go to that school
Yeah.
on a superintendent's agreement, and the school and the town says, no, I don't think so. And the state has a right to just say, no, you can take that child. And I mean, we've had some pretty incredible situations like that with profoundly handicapped kids who they said, oh, Mount Desert is so good at this, or the island. And they placed them here. So, but they have a right to do that. They have a right to just, the way it's written, and this sounds like something maybe similar. This
Yeah.
Override.
I mean, it's essentially, I don't know the true motives, but essentially it is to like override to allow housing projects to get built without.
Right, it's an anti-NIMBY.
Yeah.
But it's been taken out
Well, it was taken out, but apparently it's something they're discussing again.
again.
Amendments, so, yeah. That could get added back. So we'll see, but. And then, yeah, so VR3, let's open that one. So RW2 and RW3, again, would kind of look very similar, except for the way they are now outside of the growth area without public water and sewer. Where you've got 2 acre and 3 acre lot requirements. But the rest of it would become very similar, the same. Based on LD 1829, where I don't think that might have been a good place to put NA, where there isn't public water and sewer on RW3s. Just like some of them have just sewer, and then R3 just has sewer. But then they're still in the growth area though, so they'd be like, yet they would still be at the 20,000 square foot size. Because yeah, the only places with water and sewer, I don't think there's any oh, this is an RW3, and I think part of this is technically served by water and that's the one, sorry, that is served by water and sewer, and it is in the growth area. The very tippy top there.
They're not changing maximum lot coverage or set.
The town can still control those things.
But 40% of. No.
Yeah, those, whatever those.
40% of 5,000 is gonna be a smaller house than.
Yeah, I mean, again, if that change happens, I would probably encourage increasing the lot coverage in like the more dense areas, but. For now,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah, one thing at a time.
Yeah. And again, it's based on wherever you want to. And the other interesting one, there's again, that part's wrong for SC equals the shoreline zone. That whatever is currently in the ordinance for that can stay the same, but conservation isn't a shoreline zone. And here it is technically served by public water and sewer. So like this part, I don't know what this is. This conservation is at the golf. I thought it was the golf club. I wasn't 100. I think it is connects to Acadia. So like all the trails
Golf
that are
club.
over there.
Yeah.
I guess in theory, then they could at some point split this up to be 5,000 square foot lots because it's in the growth area and served by public water and sewer. Or no, sorry, it's not in the growth area. This lot is not, I thought I only had it here.
You noticed.
But it is 5,000 square feet lot still because it's outside the growth area, but served by public water and sewer.
Of course.
And so you could split that up.
I'll
In
let you
theory.
go golf course.
It is, when you look at the size, it's a huge.
That conservation
Yeah.
is technically in the growth area, but it is, that one is actually, I think it's out of the growth
Town.
area, but it's served by,
That's town.
it's what?
That's the town.
Is that by the?
That's
Is that
the parking lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the town?
Yeah.
it's a
Yep.
parking lot. for
That's the
Seal
parking
Harbor.
lot in Seal Harbor Beach.
Well, the town can split that up.
The land inside it. Town doesn't probably want to do that.
No, no.
That the zoning would have to reflect that there is a conservation that.
Up here, it's- well, that's, yeah. Yeah.
This is the bigger one, because it's such a big lot, and that's
It is.
sewer all along there. Those are the changes for that. I mean, I don't know what your initial reactions are, but I foresee having to redo a lot of these zones just because there's so many of them are now gonna look either exactly the same or pretty much the same, but it's not worth having.
Do you have a sense of, I wasn't paying attention to any of the legislative discussions about 1829 or, and the ones before that. Do you have a sense of their, when they're doing this work, what they have in their head for what type of community they think they're going to positively impact by these?
I'm gonna say partially. I mean, I think it's definitely skewed towards southern Maine, like policy, where there is like a much greater population and a lot more infrastructure. And that's really where they're trying to force housing to happen, I think, in their minds. But and again, like when you think about like how many towns, this really doesn't actually affect too much, where it's like, oh, now you gotta allow half-acre lots potentially somewhere if you're a small town. Like Tremont, that has a growth area, but doesn't actually have public water and sewer. That's not quite as huge of a deal, but for like towns like Mount Desert or Bar Harbor that are like in between. And again, the island is a very special case where you are very land restricted in terms of what's available to you for development because of the park. So, well, even if the park wasn't there, a lot of it's mountain or not easy to build on anyway. But yeah, like I don't think they're specifically thinking about MDI when they're making these choices.
Right, no, I wouldn't assume
Yeah.
that, but I'm just curious, is it just downtown Bar Harbor that has sewer and water, or does that town have other?
Yeah, it's just downtown, or I think Salisbury Cove has it.
Limited.
Yeah.
In the winter, stops at the top of Iverson Hill.
Oh,
And then I'm pretty sure that might be it. Yeah, Dar Harbor proper and then up Salisbury Cove. Are the only spots that
Halls Cove.
Yeah, well, all the way
Yep,
through
yep.
there. Yeah.
And they don't have anything over there? Cause, or in Town Hill,
Yeah, Town Hill doesn't have any infrastructure.
well, okay. In terms of the 1829 updates, do we know where we stand
What do you mean?
with those in terms of work that we have to do?
Uh,
Are we still in limbo because of potential litigation? or-
I mean, so tonight, I wanted to have some policy discussions on the other provisions, so I get a sense of where you want to go with this. Some of it, again, is pretty straightforward, but other parts aren't. Where, again, this was just an introduction to the zoning changes, but I don't think we're gonna work on those right away. Like, that's just gonna take a long time to work out, and the comp plan should inform at least some of it. Then Noel and Suzanne have to kind of figure out how to work 1829 into what they're doing for the comp plan, but I've got a little checklist for the rest of them. So like, I think a good one is, so in addition to what we just talked about, minimum lot sizes, part of LE 1829 also requires density by unit. Where if you're in the growth area, which I'll have to create another chart for probably, but you're in the growth area with the public water and sewer. For your first 4 units built, you have to allow a unit density of 1,250 square feet per unit. So essentially it's telling you have to allow 4 units on a lot in your growth area that's connected to water and sewer. Because 1,250 times 4 is 5,000 square feet.
We allow that now in the village commercial, Somersville and Northeast Harbor only.
You allow that in every lot?
No,
In the
in
village.
the village
commercial.
commercial zoning district, yeah, only in the, up by Summit, Sylvan City, if you, and then, in Northeast Harbor.
Right.
It used to be Seal Harbor, but that was removed.
Well, now it gets to be Seal Harbor again. But yeah, like right now, the town doesn't really express its density in a units per acre way, which I would be interested in building out. Cause it helps you keep your minimum lot size, but also create denser infill housing. Again, the state stepped in and changed some minimum lot sizes, but in theory, like, you know, if they didn't necessarily do this, but like for R2, say you wanted to keep an acre lot size, but you're like, but if it's an acre, we don't really care, like if you can manage to fit 5 units on it. And so rather than requiring that acre for every unit, you would have your minimum lot size of an acre, but then your units per acre would be 5 or whatever. And so that does also encourage denser or more housing. And it can be as dense as you want to make it, depending on where it is in the town. You base your zoning around that too. And so, and there's a way to build that into the ordinances and the way that zoning is done without going to a units per acre density. But I think it's a really clear and easy way to like regulate density as opposed to just using the minimum lot size standard as the like how many acres you can have or units you can have is just the minimum lot size.
And that's not gonna be considered a subdivision.
If it's in the same structure, no. If it's 4 units separately, yes, it's a subdivision.
So in theory, you could have 4 small houses on that 5,000.
Yeah, and so yeah, in theory, you could try and fit 4 houses on a 5,000 square foot lot. I don't think you could in
Right.
practicality, but
Right.
it's really meant that part's really meant for apartments, like to put a quad, or you could do like a quadplex where it is townhome style, I guess, 5,000 square foot lot.
Townhouses.
Did they raise the subdivision number to 5 or was that a separate?
No, it's part of 1829, but it's only one piece, so that part for dwelling units, if you just construct 5 or more dwelling units in a 5-year period, it's a subdivision instead
5 or
of
more,
a
right.
3 in a 3-year period. But just for dwelling units, lots are still 3 in a 3-year period.
Okay, lots, but if you have a lot, you can subdivide it up to 5 times or 4 times without.
No, lots, still everything it's always been. Dwelling units,
3 within a 5-year
Dwelling
period.
units on a lot though. Oh, if you could subdivide a single building.
so yeah, so if I'll just go through all of it. So if you have lots and you split your lot 3 times.
Right.
Or really 2 splits because you have the existing lot left over, unless you meet one of the exemptions, that has to go to the planning board for
Yep.
subdivision. If you split your lot once and then build a dwelling unit on each of the lots, so it's a bunch of splits, but it's still like only one split of the land, that's all still subdivision, that's to go to planning board because it's a combination of splits. If you have one big lot and you just build 4 units on it, but it's all still one lot, that still has to go to planning board for subdivision. The only time it doesn't have to go to planning board for subdivision now is if you build 3 or 4 units in one building on one lot.
Oh, God, okay.
And yeah, that's exempt, that's an administrative.
It's already confusing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna make it easier for you.
Speaking of subdivisions, are we gonna be able to talk about that ordinance tomorrow night at the planning board?
That's the plan, not the finished thing, because Andy's still looking over parts of it that I asked him to look at, but
Okay.
I will have policy questions for you all.
Good.
Yeah, because there's a big one that like I keep going back and forth with, and I don't really know what the right answer is. So,
Oh, I'm sure we will.
yeah. You guys always have. But yeah, I don't know what your guys' initial reactions are to a density, like a unit per acre density being integrated into the town zoning. I find it is definitely helpful to encourage development and makes it easier to know like if a lot's actually allowed to have like a certain number of units, because just math at that point, like very straightforward math.
The simpler the better,
No,
really.
yeah. Because that's like part of it is if you're going to develop bonuses for like workforce housing or cluster subdivision, it also makes it a lot easier to calculate that versus if it is all just like odd lot sizes and is the shape right. But Yeah, so I mean, I can always like bring examples of what that looks like in other places. It's a pretty common zoning tool, but. And I do like it, because again, you can just town, again, generally, I guess the control of the minimum lot sizes still, so there's not as much splitting necessarily, but then you could build like triplexes or a quadplex on it. So it encourages more like rental housing too, in that sense, where it's not necessarily about single family home ownership, it's about larger housing development.
Right, we could do condos too,
You
right?
could do kind of that.
Okay,
So, yeah, maybe think about that, you don't have to answer tonight, but it was a policies, it really is a policy decision. Again, like if the planning board in particular is using these tools, or the code office is using these tools to try and regulate housing or any type of development, but housing in particular for that one. Maybe you have to learn, but like it does, I think makes it easier to do.
can you back up, please, and tell me, I'm gonna put a bit of, tell me what you're talking about.
Unit per acre, or, yeah,
Well, what do we, I'm not following you.
so currently,
I have been, but not currently.
currently the ordinance doesn't like have like a units per acre density, it just says like you need a minimum lot area per like structure.
Right,
And so that like really limits, in theory, like what you can build on a lot, where like if you need to have like a acre lot
Mhm.
somewhere.
Mhm.
But you wanted to build again like a triplex or like an apartment of 4 or 5 units, you would then need to have 5 acres in order to do that, even though your structure doesn't, your impact on the land is really small because you're putting it all in one structure.
right,
And so the units per acre density allows you to keep that minimum lot size of an acre, but then you can fit a, 3 or 4 unit building like on that land without shrinking the lot size at all, but you can fit more units onto that acre land than you would have if you just kept the minimum lot size density. But the town may want to preserve the minimum lot size just for spacing and like just how everything looks.
You can just do more on that
But
piece
you
of
can
land
just do
in one
more,
spot.
yeah, on that piece of land. While also like retaining that, again, that minimum lot size requirement.
well, isn't LD 1829 gonna require us to allow that?
And only in some places, so it's like, would you just want to start doing it everywhere?
Oh, okay.
Or would you want to like only allow it in the confusing way that they kind of have it? Cause again, it's not even like. For like growth area connected to water and sewer, it's only the 1,250 square feet for the first 4 units. And then after that, you can only allow or ask for an extra 5,000 square feet per unit. So if someone wants to put 5 units on a lot that's in the growth area with water and sewer, they have to have 10,000 square feet. So they get the 4 units on the 5,000 square feet initially, but then if they want to build another unit, the town could ask them to provide a full 5,000 square feet.
I see.
Would it be 5,000 feet every unit after that?
After the 4, yeah. Okay. Mhm. And then if you're outside of the growth area, it would have public water and sewer, it's just straight 5,000 square feet, or it's 5,000 square feet for the first 2 units. Then the town can request anything they want after the first 2 units.
Good God,
Yeah, right?
it's simple.
Yeah.
It's simplicity.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, it doesn't fit simply into the existing structure. So like I'm encouraging that we do think about redoing the structure itself. In some way.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people don't want a triplex or a quad, whatever plex. They want individual buildings.
Mhm.
You're not gonna see that happening a
I
lot.
don't really have a choice now in certain areas. Because of this part.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that it's not, I only know of one triplex.
Right.
And
So wherever there's sewer and water, there's no,
Yeah, essentially wherever there's sewer or water.
then,
I have a fourplex for sale. C Street.
Oh, yeah,
Well, that's right.
also, what's, awful, so,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
therefore. But you don't see a lot of that development. I don't know why, just, I don't think people like people stacked side by side or up and down.
Right.
I think they'd rather like fill the lot with structures versus having one structure.
It's interesting.
But I also think it's the way it looks from the outside. If it looks like an apartment building,
Mm.
then it's not as easily accepted as if it looked like a single family home.
Yeah.
And then you go inside and you can do different things.
yeah,
Right.
way the house on C Street looks, you would think it's one
You would,
Yeah.
resident,
yeah.
Yeah.
You would.
and yet it's four.
Mhm.
Right, since again, like that could be
That gets into design.
design standards, yeah.
Yeah.
like,
Well, there's
Base
some
zoning.
signs there, let me show you.
Well, yeah. Well, what about where the Flynn's live? Well, that used to, but they,
Across the street,
yeah, but
that's
they,
4 condos.
right, but did they combine? What, yeah,
They combined one,
one,
so now it's 3 units. One of the things I asked Noel about a long time ago was maximum lot size. So if you think about Sylvan City and Upper and Lower Dunbar Road, what would be sad to me would be if someone came in and bought these 3 lots, combined them.
You can definitely set maximum lot sizes.
Because I think that's important to maintain the character of some of these neighborhoods.
Yeah, I mean, and you could definitely incorporate that into a dimensional requirements table, just having maximum lot sizes too. And again, like downtown, that you would make sense to me to not allowing people to buy up a bunch of small lots and making them one lot. But yeah, there's nothing that requires that though. So the town's very free to come up with whatever they think makes sense for areas of the town in that respect. But it's not a bad idea necessarily. Again, similar to minimum lot sizes if you're trying to preserve character somewhere, or it's the same idea.
Because as these neighborhoods change and as the people that have been there for generations are moving out and seasonal people are buying these properties, you know, it's just a matter of time before they buy the one next door and the one next door.
Yeah.
So I think we have to move more quickly than we would think to.
As when we discussed this previously, it seems to me that you're going to need buy-in among a significant percentage of those neighborhoods. Because what you're basically doing is restricting their sale, potentially restricting their sale value in the
Right.
future.
You're restricting how much they can split up.
And in the same way that we didn't allow the short-term rental ordinance because everybody talked about their individual rights and their rights for their families and their this and their that, and that just like threw it out the window. And the rest of the town didn't support it. I think that if people showed up at a meeting from these neighborhoods and objected to doing this, I'd be really surprised if the rest of the town said, well, no, but we want to preserve the character of your neighborhood. That's my concern about that. We'd have-
Well, I mean, do you think like an area like downtown Northeast Harbor would be the spot to pilot something like that? I mean, and the maximum lot size could just be like 20,000 square feet or something. Because that's like kind of the minimum for certain types of
Do you
development.
know what those lot sizes are now?
That's fair. They're not 20,000 square
Yeah,
feet.
I don't know.
They're very small lots.
Right, but if you're gonna put a septic on it, and I don't know how much of, I'm pretty sure most of the downtown is connected to water and sewer, but
Yeah.
if you get slightly outside of that, how much is? I could look at this map.
Because
to answer my question.
Remember when Main Street burned and Wingspread was gonna try to rebuild, we had to actually change the setbacks. Because otherwise Wingspread would have ended up being a 1-lane bowling alley for the size of what they could build there. Because the lot is so steep and so narrow.
Like fun. Yeah, like- But yeah, it's an interesting idea. I haven't really actually thought about maximum lot sizes though, because most of the time I don't want people to do that. In theory, because like there are parts of town where it wouldn't make sense, like up here. I don't know, say over here, you don't necessarily want to like encourage development or splitting up too much over here and over here, but. Yeah, you definitely could potentially like float that idea and like pilot it somewhere. I think a pilot would be.
So I would push back on that. Why wouldn't, if you actually want a community where more people can live
Mhm.
and you want to encourage clusters of housing that may be more affordable, why wouldn't you want housing in areas like that as well? Why would you just reserve that, or wherever? Why-
Well, I mean, it's not that you don't want housing, it's just like. You don't necessarily want to limit on how big a lot can be, where like someone may have like a farm or something out there and they do need a bigger lot, like it's a more rural.
Sure.
Sense, so like you don't necessarily want to cap it where there are other uses for the land that's outside of housing.
Sure, the only farmland is up on Beach Hill.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, that's
it's
according
rural,
to our comp plan.
right?
That part.
But yeah, the further away you are from infrastructure, you generally do want to encourage your housing towards where there is infrastructure and things are also walkable. The next question I had was, I guess maybe more for Kim, I guess, but just in terms of like, I guess, but anyway, I can answer. Right now, the maximum a building can be outside the shoreline zone is 40 feet. But there is the provision for affordable housing projects that they have to be given at minimum a 14-foot height bonus. So that would make the tallest building 54 feet. Is there any reason that the town might then want to consider lowering the height limit overall so that then the affordable housing bonus doesn't make quite as tall of a building, or like?
Well, the shore, outside the shoreline, they can go higher with planning board approval.
Oh, so there are already buildings that are 40 feet.
Well, just there's one that I've been, maybe I've been
Yeah,
on.
there's a couple.
So it's not
And
like.
that was a kind of, again, they tend to be,
Are the Twin Towers higher than 40 feet?
Over there?
Yeah.
No.
I was like, what? Oh, I got,
You knew where I meant.
yeah, it took me, I
Sure
tried,
did.
like, yeah, yeah.
Floors is 54.
I'm still trying to figure.
I think it's
Close.
but it's
Yeah.
not.
Right behind it.
I think
Right.
Yeah.
oh,
there.
14 feet is a
Right here.
story.
Yes,
So-
yes.
You weren't here.
Roof.
So I have gables and like that type of stuff don't usually count
Okay.
towards height, yeah.
Yeah.
So at this thing it's 4 floors. 4 stories.
Plus a
Would you want to encourage higher along Main Street,
I
in
don't.
Seal Harbor?
Would you want to?
I'm just saying, this is where you want the housing.
Right, but
Right.
like if you're trying to, I don't know, like how.
You mean in Seal Harbor or in Northeast?
Northeast and Seal Harbor.
How does the,
How do people feel about 68-foot tall building?
you know, the fire department, right? Isn't there, you know, like I know a lot of small towns in Maine clearly don't have ladder trucks.
So that's definitely something.
That's not what I meant.
Or
They're lucky on the
a
island.
lot of towns are like, we don't even have the fire equipment to fight a fire, like a building that tall.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
And so now they are thinking, again, like that's why I brought this up, they're thinking of just lowering their building height standards overall and then. Being able to have the flexibility to let people go higher if they too like.
But we're not gonna start you at 40. We're just gonna
Yeah.
assume like 2 stories and then you can
Right.
petition for more.
You can, ask for more,
That doesn't seem like a great solution.
it's cheaper than buying a fire truck.
Depends on what you charge for the permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much.
It's like $25, the permit's kind of ridiculous. But I'm not trying that.
So that was just another question, but it sounds like if you just keep it the way it is and just put the affordable housing bonus in with the rest of them, and 54 feet's not a huge deal, but.
Right, I mean, if it's an interesting question, if it becomes a topic, I mean, somebody like. Chief Bender is gonna mention that, and then we're gonna be engaged in it.
Not does there have a ladder truck? Bar Harbor has one, but yeah.
I'm sure we have at least one.
We're covered, so yeah, at least one.
We're all set with that.
Yeah. Just in case.
I mean, again, like, it's going like affordable housing projects, like. You're probably not gonna get
Correct.
an overwhelming number of those coming to the town, like
Yeah.
you might get a handful, but enough that one ladder truck would be sufficient to service those. Next one was. This one was actually more for Kim, so because now and percent. 3 and 4 units that are all within the same structure no longer go through the planning board for administrative review. How does your office want to handle those, where it's like you could. Just do, like at bare minimum, you would just do a build permit process and just have them go through that, or you could in theory have them go through a similar review as like a subdivision review, it's just your office doing it. Without a public hearing, is that the planning board doing?
Can we kick it to the planning board?
Not kick it to-
Cannot.
Well, actually, that's a question I have, and I haven't really gotten a straight answer to, where. The planning board in theory can do administrative reviews, but the fact that they always have public hearing meetings is what I think would be a question or a challenge to that, where. As long as they're not doing like the formal subdivision review process and just kind of doing a more basic like administrative review. Maybe, but like I think it's just a lot cleaner and easier if the code office just does it. Then no one would challenge that.
Well, at that point, I would say maybe notification to the abutters should come into play.
Oh, yeah, well, like, so I don't know, again, like you're,
We don't notify people now because we don't have to on permits. I mean, I don't know how people would feel now that planning boards being, removed from the review of a, quad or two, well, it's gonna be the same
It's
building.
gotta be a triplex.
Yeah. Yeah, I think notification to abutters, I mean, should come into play at that point.
Yeah, and so I mean, would that fit under, like, as an addition to your current
Yes.
CEO permit? Then just have a
Yep.
separate section built out for these types of buildings, that have its own additional like steps for it. Anyway,
Mhm. I'd wanna know if my neighbor was putting up a
Quad.
quad unit. Or a tri-unit, I'd wanna know that as a neighbor.
And then as you're reviewing it under the CEO permit, would you want to review it like a regular subdivision? Like you'd look at all the same things the planning board does, but
Yep.
just your office?
Yep, exactly.
And one more question on that, the state technically allows the structure subdivisions to be reviewed with less criteria than a land subdivision. The planning board is typically what just has to make that decision, for that exception. Would you want to do the full? Where like it only looks at things like, it can look at anything really, but like it's only required to look at stormwater, vehicular access, water supply, and then wastewater disposal. And like, as long as they can prove that for a structure, that's like could be in theory, the limit to the review criteria. But would you want to do something like that, or would you still want to go through again everything that even for land would be reviewed? You can think about that piece too, but that's an option. Like you don't have to necessarily review everything that's required for a land subdivision. You could truncate it to a quicker review because it's not in theory having as much of an impact on the land.
I mean, we do a lot of review and require a lot of submissions when we do
Pretty thorough here anyway.
Huh?
Pretty thorough here anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I just think, I mean,
Right, as long as it's following the.
yeah, I think, ouch, as long as, the utility stuff and stormwater, and I mean, it's no different than a regular review.
And then just adding the abutters notice to it.
Yep, adding the abutters notice, yep, state fire marshal approval, that type of stuff.
I can try and
State.
draft up something and then let you look at it. Of what the steps would be, and it's actually reviewed. Yeah, the town already seems like you can do this, but for ADUs on non-conforming lots, that's now specifically allowed.
Yes,
So like, I'll just add a sentence to the ordinance that says that's specifically allowed.
Yep.
So if I'm in a zone I have a lot that's been there a long time and I'm in a zone that's 20,000 square feet and my lot is like 8,000 square feet or something like that with my house on it. So you have to then allow me to build an additional
an ADU, yeah,
ADU on it, whether or not I reside there. For some reason, it's,
Exactly.
whether, it doesn't say you have to have a homestead on that property.
Well, again, like the state's not, the state, we can't regulate ADUs by an owner occupancy, but you could still, in theory, regulate short-term rentals, especially if they're not ADUs with an owner occupancy requirement. So the primary structure on that lot could be regulated in that way, but the ADU can't be.
But we don't have a short term, so we can't, either,
Right,
anyways.
but the town could, I mean, like.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
not having-
so that would be you're regulating the
Right.
residents, I
Yeah.
mean, not.
Cause again, if they're not living there. Then
At some point,
ADU
which is,
regulated.
at some point in the imagination, which is the ADU and which is the residence? I mean, it's smaller.
Well,
It's a percentage of the whole, right?
yeah, there is like a definition.
But it's a full house.
It is, it's
But-
just capped to size, yep.
And it's just, it has to be, what's the term I'm blanking on, but it's just.
Setbacks is gonna be.
No, it's just like, has to be,
Accessory, yeah.
accessory, accessory works, because it's what it's ADU, there's another term I'm trying to think of, but it has to be accessory, to the primary, so it can't be like, the mansion can't be the primary, and then the small
Right.
shack can't be like.
Right, it's,
Yeah.
Sorry, the mansion can't be accessory.
Yep, subordinated, can't be,
That's what I.
yeah.
but you can certainly build an ADU and then you decide to live in the ADU and rent out a
Yes.
big house.
And this is Bar Harbor cap, you can't use your ADU for vacation rental. But you can build it and move into it for the summer and rent your primary dwelling. And then you can rent the ADU year round to college students that you want in the winter. But they don't have a size requirement on the ADU. In Bar Harbor, it can be bigger than your primary dwelling.
Interesting.
Yeah, but you know, they wanted
Not
to,
not accessory at that point if it's bigger,
Well, I
right?
think it depends.
Primary.
Well, I think it just depends on then what the definition of subordinate becomes. Like size is a common way to delineate what's subordinate to the other. But I guess if you
Size or number.
in the ADU, like for 3 months of the year and then live in the primary 9 months of the year. I guess so the house that is technically the primary is the one you live in longer because that's the year-round residential use. More.
But you can have a residence on your property and then you apply for an ADU that's larger than that primary and then say that's the primary,
Mhm.
that's the accessory.
Which them.
And Bar Harbor.
You can do that. You can do it here. Mhm.
Jesus.
See, I'll let that.
As long as the relative proportions remain the same.
Yeah. So if they figured out, okay, well, here's a, 5,000 square foot house, and then of course 75% of that. They could go over 75% on the proposal as long as that one maintains 75% of the living area of this. That the
Oh,
one
then-
they're now gonna call principal.
Flips.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd do that. I'd move into the new.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Right, that makes sense, that's fine, 'cause that's we thought about that in Ellsworth too, and I was like, I don't care if they build a bigger home as long as one of them meets the.
Exactly, yep.
So,
Yep.
Okay,
Already, I think has the 2.5 base density for affordable housing, so that's not changing for you. Sprinklers and ADUs, it's already in effect technically, and I think it's just good to call it out somewhere where you can't require sprinklers in an ADU if they're attached to a single family or 2-family unit. Can just you have to accept the firewall separation. We talked about the subdivision change earlier, and then planning board, appeals board requires training within 180 days of appointment. Do you already kind of sign people up for like the MMA?
Anytime I get it, I send it to them.
Yeah,
and I get it separately. It's like I get it every other
You do.
day.
so
Same, well,
I mean, just has to be now a process to making sure somebody's gone to that training within 180 days or if they're.
If they don't, they can't be a member.
It's just one of these things where they're saying you have to do it, but there's no enforcement mechanism for it. But yeah,
Okay.
like if somebody, I guess if the state saw that people weren't doing the training,
They
they were,
don't provide certifications for them.
oh, right, so it's like,
How would they know?
well, you do get a little certificate at the end of your MMA training.
I don't know if you do it online.
They should send one to you digitally, because I did an online
Oh,
and
I
I
don't
got one
know.
sent to me.
I did it, but I don't,
Yeah, they
I
are,
was really boring.
it's.
I like a knit,
So
so.
MMA is online, right? I don't think their training is that good. It's like a
I don't
very.
think They're either, they're very generic.
It's very basic and generic for people who've like literally never heard of a planning board before. And they're-
Yes.
Which is fine, there's a market for that.
Yes, but it never
I think it
advances.
talks about
Right.
bigger.
You should have training 1 and training 2,
Right. Should be
and then
another,
you could do it.
Yeah, it's not a good training.
Because we should be actually being constantly trained.
yes, I think
I
they're.
mean, it would really would help.
Especially with all the law changes and stuff, your manual must be updated, I'm sure every time, not every
I'm
time.
not sure there's ever gonna be a time in my service that's planning
Two
board.
thousand seventeen.
As I said, they do not update that,
But
they do not update that regularly.
crazy.
When I was the assistant planner and Ellsworth, my first job, because Elena was just trying to think of things I could do because I went to law school there. She was like, you need to go through and like update all the case law that was in like this 2017 training and make sure it's still the right. Of course, I don't really remember half of it, but
Well, the case law is a whole nother thing in terms of the planning board. It's a little off topic here, but I would love it if our planning board, every time there was a case, like the quarter case or the 365 case, I would love it if the planning board spent time talking about and understanding the finding of the case law.
Yeah.
Just adding to our, I mean, I doubt that, I went and found the 365 online and read that opinion, but I doubt that too many other planning board members did that.
even if you read it, like.
I sent it to him. I didn't send it to you because you're not considered,
Well, I'm not.
On
I'm
an
not-
application.
Yeah, I'm not.
but I sent it to.
Still, even if I'm not, the point is, it's good to understand
Yeah.
learn what they did and why they did it, and it just helps raise the level of bit by bit. So parking spaces.
Yeah, so a question just generally for this is, so right now town kind of handles parking particularly with like the conditional uses, like on a use by use basis, there was like one area. Yeah, but that had like a general, again, like you're required to put this many pieces of or spaces of parking in. And I didn't know if it made sense for me. I was thinking of now it probably makes sense to pull all of those parking pieces out of the individual conditional uses and just make a parking section, because there is like a parking areas section, and expanding that. To then put everything about parking under there.
Under 6C
Yeah. Well,
shoreline, and then there's,
that side of the,
then there's 6, yeah, which is, yeah, highway safety, so
Right.
the
and that's what
off-street parking.
put it under there. Because now in growth areas, you have to allow, the most you can ask for is 1 space per dwelling unit. For residential developments, and then. You can require parking maximums. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense here again with the type of development. It's not really that big of a concern having extra parking spaces, but. There's a provision for that where you could put those in place and then only require a parking management strategy plan. That doesn't require more than 1 space per dwelling unit for residential developments. But the part I am interested in is the town does have to allow off-site parking agreements now, as long as the. Site for the off-site parking agreement is within a 1/4 mile of the site that is being developed.
Now, I know that these requirements they did not have non-urban areas in line when they
Pretty,
did this,
yeah.
because it's just nuts.
I mean, a 1/4 mile for me is not that far, but again, not all 1/4 miles are made the same. And so like
Correct,
people that are older, it could be difficult to walk.
correct.
Now
Yeah,
again,
that has to have parking somewhere else, but. Can it be in a public parking area?
that's up to the town.
I mean, do you have to actually lease a space, lease spaces, or?
No, but so like, again, if I were the town, I would still want to have a parking agreement if I were gonna allow people to use the public spaces, but then if there are public spaces and they're part of the agreement, my guess is that in order to ensure that those spaces are available for that use, you would then have to stop allowing them to the public.
Well, that's like the Cranberry Island parking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or you have to, so essentially they become no longer public spaces and the town should be asking for something in return if they're gonna do that.
Right.
But otherwise you would go and ask somebody on private property?
Yeah, I mean, so like the one I.
Want to do that?
Oh, yeah, the example I go back to a lot when I was thinking about this, because I'm also doing Ellsworth's ordinances, is they have a really oddly placed funeral home right in the middle of their downtown area. And so like that has a pretty big parking space or parking lot that's empty like 90% of the time. And so like that's a
Really
use.
good thing.
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's it, yeah. It's always full, that's really a bummer.
Yeah.
It's always active on Saturdays and Sundays, but not during the week. But even when it is in use, like the parking lot's not super full because it is surrounded by so much public parking, like on the street or like right down the road. And so people usually make a good, I guess, park in one, and then after the funeral, go to lunch or something like that. So they don't even necessarily park at the funeral home. So that's like a space that makes a lot of sense to have a parking arrangement where it's like you've already built the spaces, you're not actually using them. Like let's have an agreement of some sort that allows my new like residential use to have people park here, but they don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry about taking up lot space on parking. They might pay them or at least the.
Where, is there areas around here that have?
So, yes, well, when 365 was trying to build their building on Main Street for the COA residences upstairs. I'm on the board of the medical center and we toyed with the idea of perhaps leasing them spaces from like 6P to 6A. Because the medical center doesn't need those spaces at night.
Mhm.
And actually, right now, the medical center allows, or has allowed in the past, the neighborhood house to use that parking space for their van and their other things. So it's kind of mutual agreement. And when bigger homes have been constructed, people have rented space to the workers, and then they just have a short bus taking them to the property.
Well, I mean, like Steel Harbor Beach. You know,
That's a mess.
That's a
That's,
huge mess.
but it does happen.
Are they still parking? Have they been parking there all the summer?
You're in Seal Harbor.
Who are you talking
I
about?
don't live point much.
When there's construction up on the hill.
He
in Seal
doesn't
Harbor,
need to be.
the workman parking on the beach.
Yeah.
So 6 of us drive to work in our own pickup trucks. And then we get picked up by the minivan and are taken to the work site.
At the town parking lot. Does the town know that?
Oh,
Well,
it's
if they
packed.
don't, they've gotta be really
My
dumb.
gosh,
if they-
It's packed all the time, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I drive by every morning. It definitely wasn't as bad as spring. Spring was definitely all
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
worker vehicles. In summer, I saw more residential and people boating. I didn't see the pickup truck or pickup truck.
You didn't know that happened?
Right, yeah, the Seal Harbor Beach parking lot, it's just like,
Mhm.
all winter long, it was just packed.
Mhm.
I was like, I don't
Because
see any
it's
shell hunters.
dangerous to park up on the hill, all those trucks.
Carry it.
Winter,
Right.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
It's
they
spring.
don't stop building in the summer.
Spring and summer, you wanna time limit the parking.
Anyhow, that's not my problem, so, but
No, I
Field
didn't.
survey engaged.
Yeah.
I wonder which, never mind, I probably know, on the hill.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Throw dart.
we have to do what we have to do with
Yeah,
the requirements,
but
but
it's winter.
Those-
Follow the minivan, right?
I mean, like the language.
There's a lot of,
It's just.
like,
you want
in
word-
the Northeast, there's not a lot of work that happens in the summer.
Adding it all the parking into one area.
Maybe,
Is like.
Unless it's new
right,
construction.
that,
No,
that
yeah.
probably makes sense. That probably makes sense. Although I think the policy itself in a community like ours is kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a ton of sense, and like it's up to the developer too to use common sense, where again, if you build a senior home and then try and put all the parking a quarter mile away, no one's gonna rent. You know,
Right, right,
senior home.
right.
yeah, oh, that's true.
Provide a bunch of electric wheelchairs.
And they
Yeah.
think they can just park it like people park on the side of the road,
Right.
because our roads are just not, just. they
I'm
don't
trying to
park.
think of
No, I mean,
any
along-
ones, but.
Or
We can go to
outside.
underground parking. I mean, we have our first underground parking garage in Bar Harbor now.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should have been done forever ago.
We should
Okay.
have one here in this parking. lot.
Yes, we had
Should
talked
be a
about
parking
that.
garage.
Parking garage, yeah.
Well, the last.
Parking
or
garage,
there is-
we left it here, but-
It's the last piece that really affects the LUZO was, or could have, was the residential units need to be allowed in commercial zones, but the town already does that.
We do that, we just require the standards of an adjacent residential zone to apply.
Right, but that's fine. You're still allowing them within the zone.
Mhm.
Yeah, the only one that doesn't is actually shoreland commercial, but that's shoreline zoning, so. And as far as I am concerned, that's
Shoreline commercial allows shoreline residential. Or allows residential development.
I thought. it did.
Some zones are shoreline commercial, but they're residential,
But like a single family home in it.
but you have to go to planning board to do it.
I mean, well, again, it's, if it's a law, it's a law, but this really cuts into working waterfront potential. This is how you get the condos on the docks in Portland.
Kind of, I mean, you're not wrong in that sense where,
You can't have buildings on docks like that.
well, not on docks, no, but like on the shortlands, like putting condos and stuff, but.
God, can you imagine?
I don't know, like it's,
What's
the town does have other
There are
mechanisms, maybe for
It used to be.
that. You just can't outright in your ordinance to say that you can't, you're just allowing residential projects within the commercial zones. But the town could again, like require either some type of like easements if you're in that zone. I mean, I don't think that anything like that would pass, but like in theory, there are tools that could happen through a town to preserve waterfront or water access for working waterfront and then kind of disincentivize residential development or condo development at least.
Well, I do think that's important. I mean, I believe that there was a buyer for Abel's that wanted to turn it into a residence, I think.
Well, and that's like, it says you have to allow residential, but it doesn't say to what degree. So like, I think
Recently?
Tremont does have like
Are
kind
they,
of
are they
a
gonna sell it?
good
It's for sale.
example of where like
Yeah.
they like only really allow like one dwelling unit on a like a waterfront commercial lot. So someone in theory could live on the lot and then also work at like on the waterfront in some capacity.
You could have like, if it says primary residential
Right,
in the shoreline commercial, but if you wanted like a commercial business with an apartment above, your primary is not the apartment.
so what's the word?
It's the- right.
Businesses.
So is Clifton Dock grandfather?
Yes.
And we had that question about building a
Northeast
dwelling
Harbor Fleet too.
on Jock
Where
Williams
nobody lives there.
No,
in the flood zone.
So again, you can restrict it still. It's just you can't just outright say it's not allowed.
Okay,
Well, until the state decides you can't restrict it anymore. But as far as the law is currently written, it doesn't say, you just have to allow it, and then you could put restrictions on how much and what type of housing goes in a commercial zone.
Because Fleet has the sale shack. but Clifton Dock has a residence.
So that sounds like something that comp plan. You might wanna grab.
Well, again, if grappling with the whole zoning, rezoning
Right.
structure,
Same.
that's it'll be a big deal. It'll take a long time too, but we have to at least come into the minimum requirements of all this by 2027. June of 2027.
All right. What else have we got? Are we pretty much through?
That was it for me.
That's it for you.
Yeah,
Does
you
anyone-
guys have fun. Okay.
Anyone else have anything that you think we should be trying to digest this evening? What are we looking at? Just review for us what we're looking at for timeframes. We'll have a meeting in November.
Meeting in November.
We don't anticipate that, or do we? It's up to the committee, that we'll spend a lot of time thrashing through the subdivision ordinance again. I mean, the planning board has spent quite a bit of time on that, and will continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was the idea is that once it's like really finished, and the planning board looks at it one more time, presuming Andy looks at it soon,
Yeah,
then the LUZO committee will be able to.
I think there was
review
an issue a year or so ago, so we want to make sure that happens.
it. But yeah, once the LUZO committee we'll get a chance to look at it at least before it goes to warn.
Okay,
But it'll essentially be done at that point, like minor changes maybe would be accepted, but
we are gonna be discussing it further tomorrow night for part of our meeting, correct? We have it on our agenda.
On the agenda, yeah.
One application.
And yeah, really tomorrow night, again, you've seen pretty much the entire ordinance.
Yes,
And you've seen it all together as well, except for there's one part of it that like I need help with, which is I re-looked at the like,
this is just small,
it's just small. I mean, it's not that
it's
bad.
big font.
It's on the purpose part, he wrote it.
Well, Andy and I had to talk about that. I think he actually just didn't read what I had written for you. But but the part that like I asked him to review it, I would like the planning board's opinion on it too, is I've been going back and forth about the attainable housing bonuses and which is essentially the workforce housing is what we're calling it now, but it's a very complicated bonus structure. And with what's the state with LD 1829, I really can't envision a new bonus structure for that type of housing that also doesn't create housing that is way too dense for this town, like the capacity that this town essentially could carry. So now does it just make sense to discuss having a blanket like inclusionary zoning where every housing project has to supply like 10% of the units have to be workforce housing at minimum, and then potentially could be affordable housing. Without this complicated bonus structure, and maybe you require more of those types of units in certain parts of the town. But there's less math to do, and B,
I find that attractive, but
a lot more straightforward than, again, just saying, well, you get this percentage then, and then if you do this, you get this extra percentage, and then if you do.
Simplicity, I said.
Right, it's an extra
Not that-
percentage, but also in practice, if the state keeps changing the minimum or densities and stuff like that, like all of a sudden now, when I originally made that, I was thinking 5,000 square foot lots, but I was not thinking 4 units on that lot. I was thinking 1 unit on a 5,000 square foot lot. And then what's the bonus on that, So eventually you would get to like 4 or 6, like 5 units on that 5,000 square foot lot, then it stops. Now the state changed this. Now you're looking at like potentially 15 units on a 5,000 square foot lot, which again, I think is physically really possible, but like in theory, you can build that. And so
Oh my God.
does the town really want to have like a structure that allows something like that to happen?
They don't want it, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Nothing,
but, I mean, you have to ask if you're gonna have an organization like Island Housing or 365, and they're trying to maximize their resources to provide. If we all of a sudden, I mean, we're not gonna have a lot of other development that's frankly, that's gonna say we're gonna build multiple houses and we will put 10% aside.
Yeah.
So what's our best guesstimate of what we're losing if we go to something like that in terms of workforce or attainable housing numbers?
So, I mean, I think about Heel Way. That was like 6 units, right?
Mhm.
So not even that many units, but they all were workforce affordable
Mhm.
housing. I mean, requiring, I don't know, like, how that process went, but like, did they really get like a huge bonus to develop those 6 units on that lot, or could they have developed those 6 units on that lot anyway?
No,
If they divided it, the 3 lots, they could have had a house and an accessory on each one.
So I think it's maybe about getting more creative with like all the tools that are available. But I don't know, again, like 6 units isn't a lot, so like you probably could have found a way to make that work without just a straightforward like workforce
well, I
housing.
can tell you, watching the deliberations about this, that for some people, it sure seemed like a lot.
Well, I understand that, but 6 units is not a lot.
Right.
I was a conversation in Starrington about 12 units.
It started 8
No.
POA.
No, it's always been 6.
Yeah, I know we had some discussions about another piece of property they own in a neighborhood and whether or not that could house like under this proposal, like 17, 20 or something like
It's a
that.
lot. A big number.
Yeah, it was a big number, so. Well, that'll be a long and interesting conversation.
And that's why it's really the main thing. I have a couple of small things too, but that's really the big question for tomorrow night. We'll see why.
Where does it stand now at 365 in the Harvey Hill?
It's being remanded back to the planning board in November to look at open space only.
And we're bringing
That's what I could say.
Meredith back as an
I
alternate.
Yeah,
saw that, which
I-
makes
yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah,
And we're also asking the other board members to review it besides Gail. Did Alan speak at a meeting?
I don't know.
I went back, I couldn't find.
I certainly did. and
I thought he
read
did.
about it. It's like you have a right to sue, but should you? Yeah, and I don't disavow that. So I'm happy to stay aside. Anything else?
No, but if they create.
Y'all are welcome to
this
come.
appeals board,
Yes.
they might not have be able to go to court with it. They would have just gone to the state housing appeal board.
Well, there is that possibility.
Well, not for.
No, because it's not in one building.
For them. No, it doesn't matter for that
It
one.
doesn't
That would have been
matter.
any housing project, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how they're gonna word it. They may take the choice. You could choose to go to the appeals board, or you could go straight to court, but.
I mean, the state there's a limit to probably how much a state administration wants to Bigfoot municipal government as opposed to sending it to courts.
Well, it's
I mean,
still.
you know what I mean? It's,
The way they structured it was, I was a fan of it. I know other people that are not, but I thought it was interesting how they structured it, because it is a subset of the judiciary. So in theory, the court system.
so it's like an administrative,
Still has like authority over it.
okay.
Um,
All right,
Yeah, so it's not like a separate housing like somewhere else in the state. That's
Somebody appeal them.
and the state agency as opposed to.
Right there is where they,
why they put it on the judiciary.
Yeah.
It's not like a court.
I see,
body that
I see.
decided.
Oh, okay.
They talked about it last.
So you do a magistrate or something as opposed to,
That would be they had a board, and then there was like a land professional, like a surveyor that was required to be appointed to it. There was.
Be trained to be on that.
A lawyer.
I was
that
gonna
had to be
say,
on it,
what's the
and I think
credentials to be on that committee?
Straight, yeah, it was gonna be on it too, yeah.
all right, we'll see what happens with that. Anything else?
You know how many
before we-
people would be on that board?
I think it was 3.
That,
I have more, but I thought it was 3, because I was thinking if they had like requirements of who would serve on it. And there was like, I was saying a land professional, like a surveyor or someone like that, a
Yeah.
lawyer,
okay,
and I think like a judge or a magistrate was supposed to be on it.
oh, okay.
But they may have had other people who just didn't have requirements.
Yeah.
But like, those were the 3
Three's
I remember, yeah.
minimum.
We'll see.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We will officially.
So we do this again November 18th?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. November 18th. What are we gonna do? We're adjourning. Yeah, moving for adjournment. All those in favor?